My name's Matt King. I'm 32 years old, a former Army medic, and, until that night, a part-time Uber driver. After my divorce and a spiral of PTSD episodes that got me booted out of my job and my marriage back in Oregon, I relocated here, Grand Junction, because I needed quiet. The kind of quiet you find driving strange roads at 1 a.m., windows cracked, just you and the hum of rubber on asphalt. No questions, no goodbyes, just miles. That night, I'd wrapped up my last ride. A kid from the community college headed back to the dorms. I dropped him off, waved, and pulled into the Circle K on East York. Same place I always stopped for gas and a Monster. Same rhythm. Park, pump, grab a drink, nod at the cashier, out in 5. But this time was different. The first thing I noticed was the door. It wasn't propped open or jammed. It was just unlocked. At 11:10 p.m., that was odd. The wind pushed it slightly ajar as I stepped inside. Overhead lights flickered near the drink aisle. The familiar hum of the refrigerator filled the silence. But that was it. No clerk, no music, no low radio static, just nothing. The front counter stood empty, register still on, screens glowing. "Hey," I called out, my voice catching slightly. "Someone working?" Silence. I stepped forward, careful not to make too much noise. The fridge nearest the snacks had its door open, beeping. A bottle of Gatorade lay sideways on the floor like it had been dropped mid-stock. The mop bucket was tipped, water soaking into the tile. Weirdest of all, there were drag marks on the floor, scuffed lines in the dirt and melted snow that ran toward the back hallway. Something about it, all of it, was wrong. I called out again. "Hello? Clerk?" No response. My breath started to fog in the cold air that was leaking in through the broken seal on the front door. I should have walked out. Should have called it in and let someone else handle it. But I didn't. Instead, I followed the trail. The back hallway was dim, one overhead bulb flickering like a bad omen. There were 2 doors, employee only and restrooms, both closed. The employee door had a faint reddish smear across the handle. Not a lot, just enough to make my stomach drop. I knocked on the restroom door. "You okay in there?" I asked, quieter now. Nothing. Then the sound of movement, barely audible like a shuffle. That's when he appeared. From the shadows of the hallway, a man stepped forward. Tall, wearing a gray hoodie, jeans dark with moisture. Maybe snow. He didn't speak. Just stared at me. His face wasn't angry, wasn't afraid. It was blank, like whatever was supposed to be behind his eyes had walked out already. "You work here?" I asked, instinctively backing up. He didn't answer, just walked past me without a word. No hurry, just calm, like a man leaving the dentist. I turned to watch him. He stepped out into the snow through the side emergency exit and vanished behind the building. I stood there, not knowing whether to run or throw up. Finally, I pulled out my phone and called 911. The dispatcher kept me on the line. I told her everything I could. The open door, the empty store, the man in the hoodie. She asked if I could safely check on anyone inside. I said no, just in case. She said help was on the way, 15 minutes tops. I waited by the coffee machines, eyes locked on the hallway. The fridge kept beeping. That's what I remember most now, that endless beeping like a warning alarm or maybe a heartbeat slowing down. The cops showed up fast. Flashing lights lit up the snowy lot. 2 officers came in, one with a hand already resting near his weapon. "You the caller?" one asked. "Yeah, Matthew King. I'm a driver. Just stopped for a drink." They moved quick. One cleared the floor while the other moved toward the back. I heard shouting, then a loud crack as the restroom door was forced open. I didn't go back there. Not until they wheeled the stretcher out with a body bag zipped halfway up, and a paramedic shaking his head. A young guy, maybe early 20s. Brown hair, Circle K badge still clipped to his red polo shirt. His name tag read, Jesse. He was still alive when they found him. He died an hour later. I gave a statement, Repeated the story half a dozen times, first to police, then to detectives, then to a tired woman from the Circle K corporate office. They asked if I knew the man in the hoodie. I didn't. They asked if I'd seen his face. Sort of. Just not enough to describe it well. He looked average. That made it worse. They pulled the security footage. Nothing. The system had been wiped clean from 10:42 to 11:03. The last clip showed Jesse smiling, handing someone a pack of cigarettes. That was it. No sign of a fight. No sign of distress, just regular service, then static. The working theory was Jesse confronted the man for shoplifting, probably just trying to do his job. Maybe it turned into a fight. Maybe he didn't even see the knife coming. Whatever happened, it ended in that hallway. Blood pooled behind the locked bathroom door. They never caught him. It became one of those cases, the kind people whisper about at break rooms but eventually forget. But not me. I stopped driving nights. I stopped going to gas stations. I'd walk past a fridge and flinch when it beeped. I started seeing Jesse's face in crowds. Sometimes I'd dream I was back in that hallway, and the man in the hoodie wasn't leaving this time. They held a small memorial for Jesse at the Circle K. Corporate sent flowers. A few employees wore black ribbons on their shirts. I didn't go. I wanted to. But something inside me felt like I didn't belong. I didn't know Jesse. I couldn't save him. I was just the guy who walked in too late. But then something weird happened a few weeks later. A card arrived at my apartment. No return address. Just a plain envelope with my name scrawled in pencil. Inside was a note. You did the right thing. He would have hurt more people if you hadn't called. Jesse was my friend. Thank you. No signature. I don't know who sent it. Maybe it was Jesse's family. Maybe a coworker. Or maybe someone just trying to help me sleep better. It didn't. Not at first. But over time I started driving again. Daylight hours only. I go to therapy now. Started volunteering at a local vet center too. They say healing isn't a straight line, it's loops, detours, dead ends. They're right. Sometimes, being in the wrong place at the wrong time means you're the only person who can do the right thing. It doesn't make you a hero. It doesn't make the pain go away. But it means someone lives to tell the story. And sometimes that's enough. They say you don't really notice the routine until something breaks it. For me, that break came on a Thursday night in April, 5 minutes before midnight. But to understand that night, you have to understand what it was like before. The hum of the soda fridge, the fluorescent buzz above my head, the feel of sticky keys on the lottery machine. I'd been closing shifts at Circle K on Mallard Creek for almost a year. Wasn't glamorous, but it paid for gas, groceries, and part of my tuition at UNC Charlotte. I was a junior studying digital media. Nothing wild, just working my way through school. Late nights weren't a problem. I actually liked them. No managers hovering, no lines, no yelling about cigarettes or lottery tickets. Most of the time I put in earbuds, mopped the floor, and listened to podcasts about movies or unsolved crimes. The irony of that last one isn't lost on me. That night started like any other. It was slow. 3 customers in the last hour. One of them was a nurse getting Red Bulls for her overnight shift. Another was a guy in a tracksuit who looked like he just wanted to be anywhere but here. I locked the beer cooler at 11:45, started my closing checklist, counted the drawer, rolled change, ran the Z report. The place was silent, except for the occasional thud of the ice machine or the soft ding when someone opened the door to use the bathroom. Then he came in. At first glance, nothing screamed danger. He was about my dad's age, mid-40s maybe, jeans, hoodie, worn sneakers. He shuffled toward the cooler, grabbed a bottle of Mountain Dew, then circled back for a bag of pork rinds. But something about the way he moved felt off, like he wasn't just browsing, like he was stalling. He dropped his items on the counter and stared at me too long before saying, "What time you off?" I didn't answer right away. Just punched the price into the register, tried to keep my tone light. "Midnight." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. His teeth were yellow, spaced unevenly like broken piano keys. "I'll wait outside," he said. "We can talk." I gave a quick, awkward laugh. "Not really the chatting type, man." He nodded slowly, like he was expecting that answer, then pulled exact change from his pocket and left. But he didn't leave. Not really. I watched him on the monitor. He leaned against the wall outside, just beyond where the front camera could catch his face clearly. Arms crossed, staring. I looked at the clock. 11:58 p.m. The alarm would auto-arm at midnight, locking the doors. But that only worked if I was outside by then. I stood frozen for a second, my heart crawling into my throat. This wasn't in the training manual. I kept moving because stopping felt worse. I wiped the counters again, cleaned the already clean coffee station, double-checked the cooler doors. Anything to buy time. I texted Marcus, my roommate. "Dude, weird guy out front. Might need a ride." He read it but didn't reply. I peeked through the blinds by the Redbox machine. The guy hadn't moved, just leaned there, eyes fixed on the door. I couldn't see if he was smiling, but I could feel it. At 12:06 a.m., I called Tanya, my manager. She picked up quick. "What's up?" "Hey, there's a guy outside. He came in right before closing, real weird. He's just standing out front, said he wants to wait for me." "Is he threatening you?" "Not directly, but I don't feel right walking out there." She was quiet for a second. Then, "Stay put. I'm calling CMPD now. Keep the doors locked. Don't engage." I nodded, though she couldn't see me. "Okay. You okay, Jay?" "I think so, just not trying to be another news story, you know?" She didn't laugh. "Hang tight." Tanya always acted tough, ex-military, worked nights since her own college days. But I could hear the concern in her voice. I hung up and checked the cameras again. Still there. Still watching. It's hard to explain what fear feels like when it's quiet. When there's no scream, no crash, no sudden noise. Just this slow, suffocating tension. Like being underwater too long. You know something bad could happen, but the not knowing is what really messes with you. At 12:17, red and blue lights flashed across the lot. 2 squad cars rolled up, calm and professional. One officer went straight to the man. The other came to the locked door and waved at me to open up. I let him in. My hands were shaking. "You're Jaden?" "Yeah. You okay?" I nodded. I didn't leave because he was just off. Kept staring. Said he'd wait for me. They radioed something I didn't catch. I looked out the window again. The man was gone. I blinked. Wait, where'd he go? The cop outside turned in a slow circle, flashlight scanning the bushes, the parking lot, the road beyond. "He was just here," I said. The officer inside looked toward the glass. "They said he matched the description of someone who harassed another clerk last week. East side, same kind of setup. Waited outside after closing. Never touched anyone but scared the hell out of them." I swallowed. My mouth was dry. "Do you think he was going to do something?" The officer shrugged. "Can't say. Maybe he just likes the fear. Either way, you did the right thing." I didn't sleep that night. Marcus asked if I wanted to go grab food, but I just shook my head and stared at my ceiling fan like it held the answers. I kept replaying the man's words in my head. "I'll wait outside. We can talk." Why did he say it like that? Not threatening, not friendly, just matter of fact, like it was inevitable. I requested a shift change the next morning. Tanya approved it without asking questions. From that week on, I worked mornings. Not because I was scared, at least that's what I told myself, but because I didn't want to risk seeing him again. But fear has a weird way of sticking, even in daylight. I'd be walking to class or sitting in a crowded Starbucks and think I saw him. That same building, that same slow drifting walk, always just out of focus. I'd blink and he'd be gone. One time, a guy in the Harris Teeter parking lot asked if I had jumper cables. I jumped so hard I dropped my keys. He looked confused, apologized. I felt stupid, paranoid. but the feeling didn't leave. People think fear is loud, screaming, sirens, breaking glass. But sometimes fear is a whisper, a shape in your periphery, a sound that doesn't belong. A man leaning against a wall, smiling with his teeth but not his eyes. I didn't tell my mom about it. She worries enough. I just told her I was switching schedules because of class stuff. She believed it. I think I wanted to believe it too. A few months later, I ran into Tanya at a campus coffee shop. She was off duty, wearing jeans and a hoodie instead of her usual Circle K polo. "You look less like a vampire," she joked. "Morning shifts will do that." We talked a bit. Then she got serious. "You ever hear anything else about that guy?" I shook my head. Number. But I think about it. More than I should. Yeah, me too. I've been in retail for 10 years. Closed thousands of nights. You just never know which night it's going to be. That stuck with me. Later that evening, I walked home alone from the bus stop. It was getting dark, and for a second I felt it again. That crawling feeling that someone was watching. I stopped walking, turned. No one was there. I laughed, but it sounded hollow. The truth is, some part of me thinks I'll see him again. Not because I believe in ghosts or omens, but because people like that don't just vanish. They linger. Sometimes in parking lots, sometimes in dreams, always just out of frame. It's been over a year now. I graduated, moved to Raleigh, started a job in UX design. I haven't seen him again, but that night still follows me. It's in the way I double-check my door locks, the way I scan crowds, the way I always trust my gut now, even if I can't explain it. That's the thing no one tells you. Fear doesn't just disappear, it evolves. I don't work in gas stations anymore. I'm not 19, counting bills behind bulletproof glass. But I carry that night with me. And if someone asked me what I learned from it all, I'd say this. Sometimes survival isn't about strength. It's about listening to your instincts, your unease, your quiet voice saying something's wrong. I don't know what that man wanted. I don't know what he was waiting for. But I know I didn't give it to him. And maybe, in some quiet way, that's enough. Always trust your gut. Fear isn't weakness, it's survival. The moment something feels wrong, act. Speak up. Stay put. Call someone. In a world where danger often wears the face of normalcy, listening to your instincts can save your life. They say your first job shapes you, teaches you responsibility, maybe a little independence. Mine taught me how close evil can live beside the mundane, how it can hide behind a name tag and a weak smile. I was 19, a week out of high school, when I started working the night shift at the Circle K on Long Ridge Road in Huntsville. The hours were rough, but I didn't mind at first. I wanted to save money before college in the fall, and quiet shifts meant time to think, time to breathe. It was just me and one other clerk overnight. His name was Jim. Jim was in his 50s, skinny, gray around the edges, with eyes that always seemed half closed, like he never fully woke up. He never talked much, just drank cold coffee from a plastic thermos and kept mostly to himself. Some nights we didn't exchange more than a few words. But the night of July 5th, he said something strange right as I clocked in. "Toilet's acting up again," he told me. "Might hear banging. Don't worry about it, plumbing's been bad all week." I blinked. "Banging?" "Yeah." He took a slow sip from his cup. "Old pipes. Sound worse than they are. Don't open it. Just ignore it." I gave a half laugh and a nod, but something about how he said it bothered me. Not the words. People say weird things all the time. But his tone. Too casual. Like it was rehearsed. Still, I brushed it off. At the end of the day, I was new and he wasn't. He'd worked there for years. I figured he'd seen it all. Leaks, weird noises, raccoons in the dumpster. I stocked the shelves, restocked the cooler, and settled into the lull of a slow night. Then I heard it. Thump, thump, thump. It came from the back hallway where the single-stall restroom was. At first, I thought maybe it was a vent or a janitor closet door swinging loose. Then it happened again. Thump. Thump. Rhythmic. Hollow. Like something or someone trying to get out. I looked toward Jim. He didn't react, just sat at the counter like he didn't hear a thing. I waited. Another few seconds passed. "Hey, you hear that?" I asked. He didn't even turn his head, just sipped his coffee. "I told you," he said flatly. "Old plumbing. Ignore it." That time his tone wasn't casual. It was firm. I nodded slowly, but a weight settled in my chest. The air felt thicker. My skin prickled. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew one thing for sure. He was lying. I tried to keep working, but the sound kept happening. Always the same, spaced out just enough to make you question if you imagined it. Thump. Thump. By 12:30, I stopped pretending I wasn't scared. I texted my friend Maddie just something dumb like, "This job's creeping me out tonight." She responded right away. "Girl, quit. Retail isn't worth demons in the bathroom." I smiled, but it didn't stick. I wanted to laugh it off too, but something was wrong. I could feel it. Jim hadn't moved. He hadn't said another word since I asked about the noise. He just sat behind the counter, flipping through a spiral notebook filled with random receipts and pen scribbles. His coffee thermos sat empty. He didn't refill it, didn't do his rounds. He was just there. At 12:58 a.m., he stood. "I'm taking my break," he muttered. "Back in 20. I watched him walk out. No jacket, no keys. Just walked out like he had somewhere to be. I waited 5 minutes. 10. Then I walked toward the restroom. The hallway was narrow, dimly lit. The flickering light above the restroom door made my stomach turn. I stopped in front of it, hand shaking as I reached for the handle. I didn't touch it. Instead, I crouched down. Put my ear against the wood. I heard breathing, not from pipes, not from plumbing. Breathing. And then, a sob. Muffled, broken, scared. I stumbled back, ran to the front, breath catching in my throat. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped the phone. I called 911. I remember my voice, shaky, but certain. "There's someone in the restroom," I told them. "Please, I think someone's trapped. Please hurry." The police arrived fast, less than 10 minutes. I stood outside with one of the officers while the other moved down the hallway, hand resting on his weapon. He didn't even knock. He just tried the handle. It was locked. He called out, "This is the Huntsville Police Department. Is anyone in there?" The answer was a weak sound, then crying, then a voice. "Please," the girl said. "Help me." He kicked the door in. The next few minutes are a blur. Lights, radios, more cars pulling in, paramedics, blankets, statements. I stood there like a ghost while it all unfolded. I couldn't stop staring at the restroom door, at the girl being carried out, barefoot, duct tape still clinging to her wrists, blood on her arms from where she'd tried to claw free. She was maybe 15, blonde, pale, eyes swollen from crying. One of the officers came over and asked me to walk through everything again, so I did. Told them everything, about Jim, about the thumps, about the warning, about how he just left, like it was all part of the plan. They asked if I knew where he went. I didn't. All I knew was that his car was gone. His locker was empty. The break room light was off. He'd vanished. They kept me at the station until sunrise. Not because they thought I did anything wrong, but because I was the only one who could explain how it happened. I remember asking them, what would have happened if I didn't listen to that sound? No one answered. The girl, her name was Emily, had been missing for almost 2 days. She'd been snatched from a parking lot a few towns over. The only reason she was still alive, they told me, was because I made that call. Jim never came back. They found his car in Pulaski, parked outside an abandoned hardware store. Inside, they found a burner phone, zip ties, receipts for food, and a cheap motel key. But no trace of him. They interviewed his old co-workers, his neighbors. Everyone said the same thing. Quiet guy, bit weird, but nothing dangerous. Turns out nobody really knew him. I quit 2 weeks later. Couldn't step foot inside that store again. The sounds, the restroom, the notebook. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard it. Thump. Thump. It's been 3 years. I moved to Birmingham. Started college late, but I made it. I don't work gas stations anymore, don't even stop at them if I can help it. Sometimes I still hear that sound in my sleep. Sometimes I check the back doors of every building I enter. Make sure no one's hiding in the dark. Trauma's weird. It changes you, even when you think you've healed. It makes you alert, makes you sharp. But it also makes you afraid of silence because you know what silence can hide. People always ask me what it felt like. Finding her, calling it in. I tell them this. It felt like being exactly where I was supposed to be, at the exact right time. But also, it felt like it could have gone the other way. What if I hadn't pressed my ear to the door? What if I'd listened to Jim? What if she'd gone one more night without help? I think about that a lot. And I think about how ordinary people sometimes do extraordinary things without even knowing it. Trust your instincts, especially when something doesn't feel right. Never let fear of being wrong stop you from doing what might save someone's life. Because sometimes the only thing between a victim and rescue is a single moment of courage. I've never been one to scare easy. I was the girl who laughed through horror movies while everyone else clutched throw pillows and screamed at jump scares. I grew up in Mercer Falls, a place so sleepy you could leave your front door open and still feel safe. But safety's a feeling, not a fact. And I learned that the hard way. It was March 12th, a Saturday, and me and my friends had spent the night at Kelsey's house, binge-watching old horror flicks from the 90s. The kind with grainy footage and final girls who always tripped at the worst possible moment. We stayed up way too late eating pizza rolls and Twizzlers, screaming when fake blood splattered the screen, then laughing about it 2 seconds later. By 1:30 a.m., I was driving home. I'd taken the back roads to avoid the highway traffic near the industrial zone where they were still doing night construction. It was dark, the kind of black you only get in the country, where the trees press in on both sides and the only lights are your own headlights bouncing off reflector signs and deer eyes. That's when the gas light blinked on. I muttered under my breath and checked my phone. No service. Perfect. I remembered seeing a Circle K on the way in, maybe 15 minutes back. I hadn't planned on stopping anywhere that night. I was tired, still wearing my hoodie and pajama pants under my coat, and just wanted to crawl into bed. But life doesn't care about your plans when the tank's empty. So I turned around, doubling back toward Bramble Creek Road, where the Circle K sat like a fluorescent oasis in the middle of the woods. The lot was mostly empty. One old truck parked at the side. A man stood near the dumpsters smoking, face shadowed by the brim of his ball cap. I pulled up to pump 4. The light overhead buzzed, flickered. I grabbed my card, shoved it into the reader, waited for the beep. Nothing. Pulled it out, tried again, still nothing. I sighed and looked at the store. The inside was lit, but I couldn't see anyone at the register. I glanced back at the man by the dumpster. He wasn't looking at me yet, but I still felt a chill crawl up my spine. I grabbed my keys and headed inside. The air inside the Circle K was dry and over-sanitized, filled with the artificial scent of citrus cleaner and stale nachos. A single hum from a flickering ceiling light echoed like an empty church. The cashier didn't say a word when I walked in, didn't even look up. He was a lanky guy, maybe mid-20s, with sunken eyes glued to a cracked phone screen. I gave a small, polite nod and walked toward the drink cooler, grabbing a bottle of water. As I turned to head to the candy aisle, because stress requires sugar, I caught movement from the corner of my eye. The man from outside. He stepped through the sliding doors, trailing a ribbon of cigarette smoke behind him. His boots crunched on the salt-covered floor as he made his way inside, glancing around like he didn't quite belong. His eyes landed on me and didn't move. I told myself I was overreacting. Late-night gas stations attract weirdos. People pass through all kinds of towns at all hours. but then he turned down the same aisle as me. I walked a little faster. He didn't pick up anything, just followed, hands in the pockets of a stained green parka, eyes scanning me like I was a problem he was already solving. "Out kinda late for a girl," he muttered, not looking away. I tried not to flinch. I smiled, just a flash, enough to keep things from escalating, and said, "Yeah, just getting gas. Heading home." I moved quickly to the register. The cashier finally looked up as I dropped the water on the counter. I kept glancing toward the doors. The man followed again, slower this time, like he wasn't in any hurry. I paid in cash. No small talk, no receipt. Just get out. Back at my car, I unscrewed the gas cap and slid my card into the pump. It worked this time. Figures. That's when I heard him behind me. "My truck died," he said, voice gravelly and low. "Need a ride down to Birchwood?" I turned halfway, keeping the pump between us. He was closer than I expected, just outside arm's reach, but not far enough to feel safe. "I'm sorry," I said, keeping my tone polite. "I'm actually late meeting someone. They're waiting for me." He stared at me for a second too long, like he could see right through the lie. "You sure?" he asked, taking a small step closer. "It's just 15 minutes. I shook my head. "I really can't." He didn't move. His hand was in his jacket, and for a second, I couldn't tell if it was a phone or something else. The air shifted. My heart skipped. I climbed into the driver's seat, slammed the door shut, and locked it. The key turned. Nothing. My stomach dropped. Click. Tried again. Silence. He stepped even closer. "You're making a mistake, girl," he said, slapping the window with his open palm. Once. Hard. Not playful. Not gentle. Scratches. Dozens of them on the walls. Fingernails embedded in cement. Names scrawled on the back of a dusty photo. Kaylee, Mira, Tessa, none of them Maisie. They ran fingerprints. The name Greg Hartwell was fake. His rental agreement, paid in cash. No valid ID, nothing in the DMV. Just a carefully constructed shell. And in the thaw 2 months later, the search dogs led police behind the duplex, where they uncovered 2 shallow graves under a pine tree. Children, no identification. No family had ever reported them missing. Just tree branch crosses and tiny carved wooden animals left at the foot of each. We didn't stay in Fairbanks. Maisie stopped speaking for 3 weeks. I didn't sleep for longer. I moved us to the Pacific Northwest. We changed our names. I deleted every social account. We live quiet now, and I don't let anyone near my daughter without a background check and a waiting period. But sometimes, I still see his shadow in a doorway when I walk home late. Sometimes I hear that same soft knock at our back door and freeze. Maisie still has the rabbit. I tried to throw it away, twice. Both times it ended up back on her bookshelf. She doesn't say much about that night except once, when I asked if she remembered what he said on the stairs. She looked at me, voice small and hollow. He said I reminded him of his real daughter, the one who didn't come around. That's when I knew he wasn't just a man, he was a collector. Of silence, of secrets, of lost things no one missed until they were too far gone. Kindness without boundaries can be dangerous. Sometimes monsters smile and shovel your driveway. We are taught to be polite to avoid offense, but survival sometimes means listening to the wrong feeling before it becomes the right regret. Always trust your instincts, because sometimes the most dangerous door is the one someone else has already locked, from the inside. It was February 9th, 2023, 11:22 p.m. at the Circle K on East Ironwood Street in Flagstaff. I'd taken the night shift to save for art school, knowing it was temporary, a means to an end. The fluorescent lights buzzed, the mop bucket sloshed in its corner, and I scribbled concertina sketches between customers, plotting dreams between convenience store aisles. I never imagined that night would change everything. I hated the fluorescent glare, but I told myself I'd endure it. I stood behind the register, sipping lukewarm coffee, flipping through thumbnails of comic designs, battle scenes, character expressions, vivid panels that made my heart pound. The store was quiet, empty aisle after aisle. A clock ticked on the wall, 11:05. 4 customers had come through, a pizza guy, a student grabbing energy drinks, a traveler restocking snacks. Each left with a nod, a total, and no questions asked. Then, at 11:21, I felt it. A sudden, searing hammer blow behind my eyes. I staggered, coffee splashing over the counter as I clutched my head. I blinked, and the world tilted. The checkerboard floor tiles blurred, colors slurring together. My pen dropped, rolling across the counter. I reached for the mop bucket behind me, hoping the cold water in it would shock me back. Instead, I stumbled backward, vision doubling, legs giving way like shutters closing on a bad photograph. I lurched toward the stockroom, just enough to escape prying eyes if someone came in. I slipped past the swinging door, out of sight, and collapsed onto crates. My shoulder thumped against the wood with a hollow crunch. I curled into a ball, waiting for the pain to fade, for the world to straighten out. I drifted in and out of panic. One moment I was sweating, panting for air. The next I was nothing but a body on cardboard, drifting under fluorescent lights. I felt the blood pounding in my ears and couldn't make sense of anything. Is it dehydration? Stress? Did I just fake a migraine? I tried to focus, tried to push myself upright, but my arms gave out. I curled and pressed my forehead to my knees. Cold beads of sweat slid down my cheeks. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from my brother checking in because my shift ran late. It felt miles away. Suddenly, a faint voice, the automated alert. Ground movement detected in stockroom. It echoed through the intercom, and in a few minutes a manager burst through the sliding front door. Her voice was high-pitched. She ran in and found me, collapsed behind boxes. I heard her asking if I was okay, felt frantic hands on me. She called 911. I couldn't respond. Everything was drifting. Black spots danced over the edges of my vision, and then nothing. When I came to, I was in a hospital bed. My head felt like it was split by a jackhammer. A nurse handed me water and said, "You're lucky, sweetie." I managed to whisper an answer. My eyes stung when tears spilled out unwanted. An IV dripped life into my veins. I didn't recognize the curtains around me or the scent of antiseptic. The doctor walked in, a stern man in navy scrubs holding a tablet. We had a scare. At first we thought stroke, then it looked like a bleed. He paused. I braced for worse. But your scans show a brain aneurysm pressing against the optic nerve. It was small, just enough to break. You were a hair's breadth from a catastrophic hemorrhage. I stared at the ceiling. Am I going to be okay? He nodded. Yes, but it's serious. We're running some tests. Surgery may be needed. I whispered. I thought I was just dehydrated. He placed a hand on mine. You thought right. Life was giving you signs. Recovery was slow. I spent 2 days in ICU, then transferred to a private room. My vision shimmered. Hospital lights hurt. Coffee smelled sweet and foreign. Visitors came. My brother first, face pale, not knowing what to say. Then friends, classmates, my manager. The news spread quietly. Melanie nearly had a stroke. Tears welled as they told me how sharp and pale I looked when they found me. I missed school, lost shifts, and had to skip classes for medical appointments. I kept my notebook with me, drawing slow strokes, panels of hospital stays, hovering needles, blurred lines around my face, calves trembling as I walked the hallway. It was bizarre to illustrate my own crisis. Doctors scheduled a coiling procedure in 2 weeks. It felt surreal, like an irreversible plot twist. But the fear rallied me. I was too close to what if and refused to die with my dreams unfinished. The morning after the procedure, nausea and exhaustion racked me, but when I woke, vision sharper. I saw my drawings on a bedside table, unfinished comic of a phoenix, wings unfolding in flames. Now I'm out of the hospital and back to life, different life. I quit Circle K the day after my discharge. I'm selling art commissions online, small but growing. My brother set up a scholarship fund so I can return to art school. I work 20 hours a week designing graphics, health careful, hydration constant, migraines part of my rhythm. I still keep the crushed paper cup, the one that fell from my hand behind the counter the night of the aneurysm. It's flattened, stained with coffee rings, a silent monument on my desk. This job gave me money, but it almost took my life. That pain was more than stress, more than strain. It was a sign, and I ignored it until my world tilted and everything nearly shattered. Listen when your body speaks in pain. Life doesn't always scream. It sometimes whispers through headaches, tremors, or fatigue. Give yourself the gift of attention. Your second chance may depend on it. People always warned me about going back home. After 5 years bouncing between night shifts in different towns, I knew what I was getting into when I returned to Lexington. I signed on as manager at the Circle K on Meadowview Drive in November 2023, figuring it would be an easy gig, quiet, predictable, low drama. I was tired of drama, tired of ghosts, real or not. I wanted peace. The first few nights were exactly what I expected. No crowds, a few travelers, a regular or two getting coffee and breakfast sandwiches. Then I met Benji, bright-eyed, 22, starting college in January. Said he wanted to keep busy at night. He was polite, enthusiastic, and eager to help stock sweep anything. I thought I hit some kind of lottery, a dependable kid who wasn't a liability. Everything went smoothly for a few weeks. Then the inventory started acting weird. Not bad, but odd. Same number of items sold, same breakdown by category, but something about the patterns made me uneasy. Cameras confirmed nothing missing, no shoplifting, but the logs kept showing slight mismatches. I chalked it up to a reporting glitch, but the cameras didn't lie. Then, one night around 2:17 a.m., a customer wandered in, a woman in a puffy jacket carrying a candy bar. She fumbled it, dropped it at exactly 2:17:7 on the cold tile. A clerk, Benji, picked it up, scanned it, handed it back. She walked out without thanking him. That shift passed peacefully. The next night at 2:17 a.m. she returned. Same jacket, same candy bar brand. Dropped it again. Same clerk, same timing. My stomach knotted. By the third night I was watching pre-sales logs, camera timestamp overlays. It happened again and again, night after night for a week. I started staggering shifts to cover 2:17, still there. It wasn't congestion or glitch. It was behavioral, an echo, a loop. This woman, a transient phantom, was stuck in a cycle, and I started wondering if the store, or someone was too. Benji hadn't noticed at first. I tried to mention it casually. "Funny how she keeps showing up," I said one morning. "You clocked it, right?" He looked at me blank, like I said it in a foreign language. I backed off. Didn't want him thinking I was losing it. But nights after that, the store turned brisk. Cooler air, the hum of the porch light, the scanner's beep, the ding of the door. The same few faces. A man in a green hoodie buying a can of soda. A teenager grabbing a Red Bull and leaving without looking up. Same movements, same purchases. It was mechanical, like a well-programmed routine. Except I started seeing tiny wriggles, imperfections. The cashier's hand would snag on the lottery terminal. A bag would fall the same second. The vice grip of déjà vu tightened on me. 2 weeks later, morning shift. I got to the store to find Benji gone. His jacket still hung in the break room, his phone on the table, charger plugged in. That wasn't like him. I panicked. I called his phone. No answer. Called his mom's number in the system. Called other co-workers. Nothing. She didn't know. She said he left for work normal and that was it. I dialed 911. Told them to send patrol, a missing person. They said I could wait 24 hours, but a nagging thought stabbed me. There was something more to this. I went back through logs, camera timestamps, inventory records. That's when I saw it. A receipt from 5 years ago, a transaction from the same store address, same register number, a gas sale, a pack of gum, A liner note. Meadowview Drive, December 3rd, 2018, 3:13 a.m. The date was the same calendar day, December 3rd, 5 years earlier. The clerk back then, a teenage kid. His mother and sister had died in a fire that night. Reported house fire 6 blocks from the store, same company address. He vanished after. Never charged. The story vanished. Disappearance written off as tragedy. A kid without known family. Nobody looked hard. Now I was standing in the same store. 21 passed. Holocene cycles spiraling into themselves. I felt the threads tangle. I was that kid, or I would be the next. The store was tied to some loop, some time glitch. I told the manager up the chain, but she shrugged. This isn't the Twilight Zone. It's retail. Midnight shift is hell. She suggested a week off, a temp, and moving on. But I couldn't. 2 nights later, I worked 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. I arrived at 10:45. Inventory logs were normal, cameras rolling, every staff clock-in timed. By 3 a.m., the store lights flickered. I froze. At 3:13 a.m., it happened. The scanner tone beeped. Cash drawer opened. The woman in the puffy jacket glided through the door. Benji was behind the counter, echoing the same cheerful nod. I rushed to emergency light switch. Nothing changed. Benji's stubby nod turned to a flicker of recognition. But he didn't say anything. He kept scanning gum. The pump beep. I reached the register, pulled the plug out. The POS shut off. The woman backed away without candy, stared at me with wet eyes, puffy coat boarded with nozzle stainless steel. Again, she whispered. Again. My pulse kicked. TV station lights flickered. Air conditioning cut out. She vanished. So did Benji. The store shuttered with vacuum silence. I never clocked out. I walked that cold tile one last time, passed by the scanner drawer before 4 a.m. Then I ran. Left my keys, phone, jacket, drove without headlights until sunrise. I never returned. I changed towns again. I swore never to work nights again. I never picked up a scanner tone the same. Some nights I dream of it. Beep, beep, same gum, same store, same face. Then I wake up, drenched, staring at an empty ceiling fan. I don't claim to understand what happened. Time loops or echo demons or stress made real. But I know this. When reality starts repeating itself, pay attention. Sometimes, unnoticed patterns are the sign you need to break the cycle. Don't stay in the loop. My name's Nathan Blair. I'm a travel photographer, mostly landscapes, small towns, and forgotten corners of the Midwest. I don't chase danger and I don't pick fights with strangers. I photograph grain silos and abandoned theaters and people who look like the earth has folded them into its pages. It was February 3rd, a Thursday, a little after midnight. I was driving from Minneapolis to Madison. My dad had just come out of heart surgery and the guilt of not being there sooner was riding shotgun. That, and my cat Milo, a scrappy gray rescue who never liked winter but tolerated it better than I did. We'd nearly skidded off the road twice on Highway 12, the snow coming down like shredded paper. The interstate signs were covered. My hands ached from clutching the wheel. That's when I saw the Circle K, a gas station glowing like a lighthouse in whiteout seas. I pulled in, heater rattling, Milo meowing like he could feel something wasn't right. I thought it was just the weather. I thought I just needed coffee and a bathroom. But some nights don't care what you need. They've already decided what you're going to learn. The glass doors of the Circle K opened with a mechanical chime that got swallowed by the humming of flickering fluorescents overhead. No music, no voice from behind the counter. Just the click of my boots against a salt-streaked tile floor. Milo cried behind me as I stepped inside. At first, I thought maybe the cashier was in the back. The counter was empty. Half-finished coffee still sat warm in its pot. The soda fountain buzzed, a red slushy dripping slowly from its nozzle. That's when I noticed the 2 men by the beer cooler. They weren't browsing. One leaned against the glass with his hood up, glancing toward me, then quickly away. The other was whispering something low, too fast to catch. I caught one phrase as I passed. He's alone. I froze just for a beat. Then the second man reached into his coat, not for a wallet, not for a drink, but for something I couldn't see. His eyes flicked to mine for half a second. Cold. Measuring. I kept walking, heart climbing. I headed toward the restroom at the back, trying not to look like I'd heard what I had. As I rounded the corner, I heard another sentence, sharper this time. Just wait by the side near the ice machine. I didn't breathe. Not really. I just stepped into the restroom and closed the door. Quietly. I didn't lock it. Instead, I stared at myself in the mirror and waited for panic to make a decision I couldn't. I turned on the faucet, ran it for noise, then looked up. A small window above the sink. Old, metal framed, maybe 2 feet across. Just enough. My dad once told me that if something doesn't feel right, it isn't. Your gut, he said, is smarter than the smartest man you'll ever meet. I stood on the toilet and pushed. The window creaked open, bitter cold slapping my face. Snow was still falling hard, thick, wind-blown flakes blurring everything. I pulled myself up, ducked through the frame, and dropped into the alley behind the store. My boots sank deep. I staggered as I landed, hands stinging from the metal, but I didn't stop. I tucked my chin and ran, around the back toward the front lot. The cold punched through my jacket like needles. My breath came in bursts, fog trailing behind me. I turned the corner and froze. There he was, one of the men, just standing behind the propane cage, barely 5 steps from my car. He hadn't seen me yet. I dropped into a crouch, heart pounding so loud I could barely hear the storm. Then he moved, stepped away from the cage, looking down the lot. I darted toward the car, yanked the door open, and jumped in. Milo launched into my lap, wailing. I hit the locks. Then I saw the second guy. He burst from the shadows to my left, sprinting toward the driver's side. I threw the car in reverse, tires spinning, snow kicking. The wheel jerked as we fishtailed out of the lot, headlights catching his face for a second, long enough to see that whatever was in his hand wasn't meant to scare. I didn't look back, just drove. The sheriff's office took my report at a diner off the next town after I called from a crowded parking lot. I kept one hand on Milo the whole time just to feel something warm that wasn't fear. The deputy was calm, professional, took notes, asked details. You weren't the first, he said finally, and I doubt you'll be the last. A week later they called to confirm. Those men had been caught on camera at 2 other late-night robberies. Always the same, quiet towns, snowstorms, back roads. But that night in Baraboo, they left empty-handed, too fast, too sloppy. They didn't expect someone to listen to the silence. I never drove that route again. I avoid back roads when it snows, even if it means running the tank to fumes. My camera work slowed for a while, and I didn't take photos for a full month after that, but I still remember their voices, still feel that shift in the air when something goes wrong before it actually does. Milo still meows every time I stop for gas, and I still listen. Some people think bravery is standing tall, running toward the fight. But bravery, real bravery, sometimes sounds like a whisper that says, leave, now. That night, I didn't prove anything. I didn't outfight anyone. I didn't save a life. But I listened, and I got home. That counts. Your instincts are louder than fear for a reason. Don't wait for proof when your gut is already speaking. Silence is a language too, and sometimes it's the only warning you'll get. I never imagined that a part-time job at Circle K would push me into the edges of the unknown, but that's exactly where I ended up. My name is Shelley Hart, and when I was 28, I took the overnight clerk position at the station on Vesper Hill Road in Roanoke, Virginia. My father had just begun chemotherapy, and I needed every penny I could earn to cover his co-pays. Nights suited me. Quiet shifts, no judgment, time to focus, and they paid double. My manager, Chris, was up front. "Shelley," he said on my first night, "things get weird around 3 a.m., you'll see. Just shake it off." I nodded, imagining drunk teens or stray animals rattling the place. I'd stocked shelves, rang up Red Bulls, cleaned the restroom. No big deal. We even installed a new camera system a few weeks earlier. Most nights were exactly as expected. 1 or 2 late-night drivers, a couple of locals grabbing sodas, a chatty paramedic picking up coffee. The kind of shift where you mop floors until the sun comes up and slip into bed without thinking about tomorrow. Then one night, about 3 weeks in, it happened. I was straightening soup cans on the 3rd shelf when a row of them simply toppled over. They lined the floor in a perfect arc, like dominoes. I spun toward the camera feed on the monitor behind me. Nothing. No flicker, no glitch, no stray customer. An empty store. I chalked it up to a faulty shelf and moved on. But then it happened again. A week later, the door alarm chimed at 2:46 a.m. I jumped, ran to the counter, but no customer, no open door. I stood there, breath in my throat, watching the front glass. Nothing but the empty parking lot. The radio was buzzing, weather report on loop. My rational brain demanded logic, rodents, wind, faulty sensors, but my body tensed in that cold, silent air that envelops a store at night. Each shift ended uneventfully, but my gut tightened as I clocked out. I didn't tell my dad. He was sick enough. I just smiled, nodded, and kept working. Then came the night I understood Chris's warning wasn't about drunks or rats. It was my 7th week working there. On April 8th, 2022, I started at 11 and planned to be out before dawn. I stocked chips, swept the floor, topped candy displays. Routine. At 2:30 a.m., I checked my phone. Dad was sleeping, meds taken. I texted my roommate, almost done. She replied, hang in there. I laughed, but the humor felt forced. At exactly 3 a.m., the lights flickered, just for a second. A freezing draft slithered through the store. Doors sealed, no HVAC vent anywhere near that temperature drop. I felt it crawl between my shoulder blades. Then I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps. Not on the front door, not where customers would be. It came from the storeroom, a small space in the back used for cleaning supplies and extra stock. Doors were heavy steel, bolted shut. I stared at the pantry light flicker above it. My heart began pounding. I forced myself to breathe calmly. I walked toward the back. Every step echoed in the cavern of the aisles. I reached the door, hand trembling, and turned the handle. Unlocked. I opened, flicked on the light. Nothing. Just dusty shelves, mop buckets, extra coffee boxes. No rats, no break-in, no explanation. Then I saw it on the floor. An old Polaroid, edges curled, colors faded. I picked it up. It showed a young boy in a Circle K uniform smiling, clutching a balloon. I turned it over. Tight cursive scrawl. April 9th, 1994. His shift never ended. Chills shot through me. A story unfurled in my mind. A kid, alone one night, never leaving. I remembered the broken shelf and the empty alarm. Suddenly, the store felt alive. I tucked the photo in my jacket and left the storeroom. Doors shut behind me with a click that reverberated inside my chest. I stayed until dawn but didn't mention the Polaroid. Chris came in his car around 6 a.m., radio on, coffee in hand. He asked how my night was. I forced a smile. Quiet. I tucked into my routine, mopped floors, rang up the early crowd, stocked shelves. Every corner of my vision felt watched, though I couldn't explain it. I slipped the photo into the back office drawer when Chris went to the storeroom. I couldn't ask. I was afraid I'd sound insane. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the day's moments, the squeak of the cooler, the hum of the lights, the emptiness in the storeroom. At 1 a.m., I sat on my couch and typed Circle K 1994 Roanoke boy into Google. I found a grainy news clip. 22-year-old Ethan Schultz went missing on April 9th, 1994. He was last seen alive leaving a Circle K on Vesper Hill Road. No trace ever found. I almost shut my laptop. The date matched. The store address matched. My breath grew ragged. The Polaroid had his face. His shift had never ended. Ethan's shift had ended. Then there was years of nothing. Maybe the boy was lost. Maybe nothing. But I knew that Polaroid was no accident. I stuffed the laptop away and stared at the dark ceiling. Sleep didn't come. I showed up half caffeinated next night. My uniform was pressed, shoes clean, stomach tight. Every beep, every squeak seemed louder. I kept the radio up. Some loud talk station, but dead silence filled the gaps. At 2:59, lights dimmed. Draft whispered. At 3 o'clock, the storeroom door knocked. 3 slow, patient raps. This time I didn't go alone. I grabbed my phone flashlight, opened the camera app, and peered in. Nothing. The floor was clear. No Polaroid this time. I waited, breathing hard, hand quivering. Suddenly I heard footsteps behind me, heavy and deliberate. I whirled. The aisles were empty. The check stands were empty. The parking lot visible through the glass was drenched and silent. I turned back to the storeroom. The shadow of a child's handprint appeared on the metal door, as if someone had pressed one palm against it, leaving a smear. I swiped my finger. It was there, faint but definite. I rushed over and touched it, cold to the point of burning. As I recoiled, one quiet word crept into my thoughts. Stay. That was my last night. I handed my keys back to Chris at noon. He nodded, sober. It doesn't bother you if you don't acknowledge it, but you did, he said, eyes distant. I swallowed. I feel it. Couldn't say more. He didn't ask for explanation. I moved closer to my dad's hospital, took a position at a bookstore day shift. I visit his treatment, drive home without fear of cold drafts whispering through my car. But every night, at 2:57 a.m., my dog Max stiffens. He growls at the hallway closet, 3 low, guttural growls. I freeze. I open the door. Nothing's there, except dark stillness and that dreadful silence. I lie awake and think about Ethan, the Polaroid, the echo of a boy whose shift never ended. I don't know where he is. I don't know what he wants. All I know is that some jobs don't wrap up when you walk away, and some places keep you there long after your shift ends. Sometimes the unseen holds more truth than what lies in daylight. Respect the silence, trust what unsettles you, and don't ignore the knocking when it comes, because some stories never clock out. Graveyard shifts have a rhythm, a strange, sleepy kind of music that only those who work while the world sleeps ever really learn. There's a calm to it, an eerie kind of quiet broken only by the hum of refrigerators, the ding of the door chime, or the occasional drunk guy trying to haggle over a hot dog like it's a pawn shop. I liked it. It gave me space to think, to breathe, and to study when it was slow. I was 26 and halfway through nursing school. Every dollar from my job at the Circle K on Silver Creek Road helped keep me from drowning in student loans. That's where I was the night everything changed. It was a Thursday, early October. Cold rain tapped against the glass, and the street out front was all puddles and wet leaves. It was around 4:05 in the morning, the dead hour, when even the rowdiest partiers finally give up. I was wiping down the coffee station when the front door chimed. She stepped in, tall, soaked to the bone. Her long black coat looked like it belonged to another decade. Her heels clicked against the tile like something out of an old film. Her makeup had run down her cheeks, and strands of wet hair clung to her face like spiderwebs. She didn't say a word at first, just walked to the coffee machine, filled a cup, grabbed a pack of instant ramen off the shelf, and placed it all on the counter. Then she dropped exact change without looking at me. "Rain's brutal out there," I said, trying to break the silence. "You okay, ma'am?" She looked up, and for the first time I saw her eyes. Empty. Deep. Not crying, but raw. Like something had been torn out of her. Her voice was soft, like she wasn't really speaking to me. "My husband died last night," she said. "Head-on collision. Came here before the ambulance even got there." I froze. I fumbled for words. Offered condolences. Something about how sorry I was. She didn't react. Then she tilted her head slightly and asked, "Do you believe in punishment?" Her voice didn't sound broken anymore, It sounded deliberate. I don't know, I said. I'm not really religious. She stared at me for a long beat, then nodded. You should believe in it, she said, because it believes in you. She didn't move, just stood there looking at me. Her coffee steamed between us. The store felt colder suddenly, like the heater had cut out. I didn't know what to say. I'd had emotional customers before, people who talked too much or cried at the counter. But this was something else. Then, all at once, her mood shifted. Her voice sharpened, turned brittle. You're one of them, she said. I blinked. I'm sorry. She pointed at the gum rack, the taquitos behind me, the lottery machine to the right. All of this, she spat, junk, poison, and you smile while selling it. Ma'am, you don't care. None of you do. Just like the paramedics, just like the priest. You look people in the face while they suffer, and you smile. I took a step back, glancing toward the emergency button under the counter. I didn't mean any harm, I was just trying to be polite. She leaned closer. You smirked at my pain, she whispered. You mock God without saying a word. Then she screamed, full volume, shrill and sudden. She threw the ramen cup against the glass, the hot water exploding in a steamy mess across the display. I reached for the phone. She stormed out before I could even dial. The door slammed. The night swallowed her. I stood there for a good 10 minutes, heart still thumping. No one else came in. Just the silence and the hiss of the coffee maker. Eventually, I cleaned up the ramen mess and tried to shake it off. Maybe she was mentally ill. Maybe she was grieving. I wanted to forget it, chalk it up to one of those stories you tell other coworkers later. The kind that starts with, you won't believe the customer I had. But I couldn't forget it. Not what she said. Not how she said it. Not how she looked at me. The next morning, around 7:15, I walked out to my car in the parking lot behind the store. It had stopped raining, but everything still glistened in the early morning light. I got closer and stopped cold. Both of my front windows were shattered. Glass everywhere. The interior was soaked. At first I thought maybe it was a robbery, but nothing was missing. Just wrecked. And then I saw what was on the driver's seat. A photograph. Burned around the edges. A wedding photo. The bride and groom were standing under a white arch, smiling. But their faces had been scratched out with something sharp. On the back, in red marker, were 3 words. I see you. I called the police. They took a report, looked around, took the photo as evidence, said it was probably connected to a recent mental health report. Transient woman, they said. Possibly unstable. When I described her, one of the younger officers flinched slightly, said he might have seen her walking near the river park a few nights earlier, talking to herself. They told me not to worry, said it was likely a one-time thing, but I knew better. That kind of anger doesn't go away in one night. That kind of look, the one she gave me, wasn't about grief. It was targeted, focused, like I had become a symbol of something she hated. I didn't sleep well that night. I kept thinking about the photo, about how the faces were gone, about what she meant by punishment. Then, 2 nights later, just before my shift ended, I saw her again. She was outside, not moving, just standing in the parking lot, hair soaked, coat clinging to her skin, the same stare. She didn't try to come in. She didn't speak. She just watched. I didn't finish that shift. I called my manager, told her I was done. She didn't argue, said she understood. I moved a month later, found a new job working days at a clinic. I graduated from nursing school, tried to rebuild my routine, put it all behind me. But every so often I see something that makes my blood turn cold. A shadow near my apartment complex gate. A tall figure in a black coat by the edge of the road. Once a woman in the waiting room at work looked at me and smiled, but her eyes looked just like hers. Empty and old. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's trauma. But late at night, when the world gets quiet, I still hear her words. Do you believe in punishment? and I wonder if it ever stops looking for you. Not every ghost is dead. Some are people carrying grief like a weapon, pain like a lantern, looking for someone to blame. But if something doesn't feel right, listen to your gut. And sometimes, kindness isn't enough to stop what's already broken. It feels strange now, how a single moment can fracture your sense of safety. It wasn't a scream, a chase, or even a violent clash. It was a calm confession from a stranger in a wrinkled gray suit. A whisper that changed everything. I'm Carlos Vega, 24 and working night shifts at the Circle K on Larkspur Avenue in Henderson, Nevada. I took this job to help pay for grad school, mostly uneventful nights filled with coffee, idle chit-chat with regulars, and the occasional shoplifter who'd make a break for the door. I liked the solitude of powering through graveyard hours, the hum of the neon sign outside, the quiet that came after 2 a.m. But on October 3rd, 2022, something crossed the threshold that wasn't just looking for snacks. It was looking to erase me from feeling safe ever again. It was a Monday night, or really, early Tuesday morning, when most of the city's lights dim under curfew. I'd been there since midnight, sipping on stale coffee, organizing snacks, polishing the counter. The store quiet is a special kind of quiet, different from daytime business noise. It hums with solitude and gives your thoughts too much room. Then, at exactly 2:12 a.m., the door slid open. I looked up, wiping my hands on a rag. The fluorescent lights glared onto him. A tall man, suit gray but rumpled, tie loose, shirt stained with, well, I couldn't tell what. His eyes had that glassy look, like he'd been awake for days or just gone through something no one should. He didn't say anything, just wandered. No cart, nothing in his hands. He passed aisles slowly, muttering to himself like he was arguing in his head. A few seconds later, he came up to the counter. Close enough that I could smell bleach or sweat or something I can't name. He leaned in and said, calm as a confession, I got acquitted, you know. Shot him right through the neck. They said it was an accident. A hunting accident. My throat closed. I blinked. That can't be legal conversation at 2 a.m. I managed to laugh, because it sounded like I wasn't hysterical. Okay. That'll be $3.42. He didn't answer. He just stared. Then he said, there was no accident. He dropped exact change, 3 dimes, 4 pennies. He counted it out carefully on the counter, slid the coins toward me, smiled, and walked out. Just walked. Never looked back. I stared at the door after he left. The hum of automatic sliding glass filled the silence. My chest felt tight, breath shallow. I put the coins in the register, hand shaking. The coffee machine gurgled. I turned it off. I called 911 from behind the counter, voice low. Someone just admitted to murder in the store. The dispatcher asked for a description. I rattled off what I remembered. Tall, gray suit, glassy eyes. Tie loose, shirt stained. No car at the pump, just him, walking off. I stayed there until the cops came. They were polite, took notes, searched the lot, asked me to identify him if he came back. They said they'd keep an eye out. But there was no sign of him. A shadow disappeared in the night. 2 days later, 2 men in badges walked in. FBI field agents. I nearly spilled my coffee. They told me the man matched a suspect in multiple cold cases. 3 states. Violent crimes with similar MO. Confessions, staged accidents, mysterious evidence. They took my statement and my video footage. I watched the security tape with them. It showed the whole encounter, man walking in, pausing at rack, leaning in and saying each line word for word, leaving behind that silence. They said they'd follow leads. I felt my stomach drop. But later that week, he came back. It was around 2:05 a.m., 5 minutes before my shift ended. Just stood by the door. Didn't come inside. I saw him in the security cam feed, gray suit, tie loose, just waiting. I didn't walk to the door. I locked it from the inside and waited for him to leave. He did after about a minute. Just walked off into the night. I left 2 days later. I couldn't stay. I switched to mornings. Trader Joe's interstate side, same hours I used to work part-time in college. They're busier, safer, more people around. I drink more caffeine. But there are times I'll catch myself glancing over my shoulder at work, imagining him, quiet and confident, pressing his suit tight, telling me another confession. I have cameras installed on my apartment porch now. I didn't do it to paranoia cloudy extremes. I did it to feel some ownership back over my world. I changed locks. I pay closer attention. Some nights I lie awake, staring at ceiling shadows. I half wake at the fridge humming, thinking the door is sliding open, just to see him leaning in, gray suit, glass eyes, whispering. There was no accident, but I'm alive. I went back to school, finished my first semester, and learned CPT chapters and coffee discounts. I'm fitting lights into my apartment. I laugh more. But that night taught me something I never believed before. Fear isn't always loud. Sometimes it walks in calmly. I'd just finished a 12-hour shift waiting tables at a diner off E35, feet sore, back aching, hair in a crooked bun that started the day neat. Ava and Leo, my kids, had waited up, wide-eyed and sugared from popsicles. "Mom, can we get real ice cream?" Ava begged, her little hands clasped in pretend prayer. Leo chimed in with a high-pitched, "Please, please, please." I wanted to say no. I always wanted to say no after work. But something in their faces made me pause. I looked out the window. It wasn't quite 10. The Circle K was lit up like always, and the store was only a few blocks down Cicada Lane. It seemed harmless, familiar, and I needed to stretch my legs anyway. So I said, "Put on your shoes. Let's walk." I wish I could say I felt something off. I wish I'd sensed a shift in the air, or the moon blinking strange. But it was just another warm night. The kind we'd had 100 times before. Halfway down the street, I spotted a truck parked in the shadow of a busted street lamp near the gas station lot. A man and woman stepped out from behind it just as we neared the entrance. The man looked like someone you'd trust to fix your car. Neatly dressed, collared shirt, hair combed. The woman wore heels that didn't belong on that cracked sidewalk and a white blouse too crisp for nighttime in Temple. They smiled like they knew us. I pulled Ava a little closer. Leo was tugging on my hand, already pointing at the store window where a freezer decal showed swirl cones. "Look, Mom." That's when the man stepped in front of me. "Evening," he said, casual as a neighbor. "Mind if I borrow your wallet?" I didn't even have time to reply before he flicked open a switchblade. The silver caught the Circle K lights like lightning. I froze. Not out of confusion, but because I saw, just over his shoulder, the woman had moved fast. She had her hand around Leo's wrist, pulling. Ava screamed so loud it broke the moment. And suddenly, I wasn't tired. I wasn't off work. I was a mother, cornered. I dropped my purse, twisted, and kneed the woman in the gut so hard she stumbled back. Leo broke free and bolted. "Run!" I shouted to Ava. She grabbed Leo's hand. The man lunged, but I grabbed the nearest trash bin and swung it sideways into his arm. His wrist cracked against the edge. The knife clattered to the pavement. He cursed and stumbled. I didn't wait to see what came next. They both ran, into the alley, behind the houses, gone like a breath. I stood there shaking, my arms out like I was still holding something heavy. The kids ran to me, crying. "Are you okay, Mom?" Ava asked. I nodded, though I wasn't. Not even close. We went inside the store. I told the clerk to call 911. My voice felt like it belonged to someone else. The police didn't show up fast. We waited on the curb. A patrol car rolled up after 20 minutes. I gave my statement. The officer nodded, took notes, but didn't seem too urgent. Maybe it was the lateness. Maybe it was me, a tired waitress with 2 crying kids and no knife wound to prove anything. The next day, everything got worse. A detective called and asked if I'd been involved in an assault. I said yes. I'd been assaulted. He corrected me. A woman filed a report last night saying you attacked her without provocation, claimed you tried to rob her. I laughed. It was bitter and empty. But they weren't laughing. For 2 weeks, I was under investigation. They asked about my financials, my stress level, my work schedule. I could feel the way they looked at me. Single mom, late shift, walking around with kids near a gas station. It wasn't spoken, but it was there. I thought I'd lose my job. I stopped sleeping. I kept watching the driveway at night, convinced they'd come back. Ava kept checking that the door was locked. Leo wet the bed, but then one of the officers called with a new tone. Surveillance footage from a different gas station, 3 nights before ours, showed the same couple. Same truck, same clothes, different parent, same setup. Turns out they'd been hitting spots along the highway, picking people who looked too kind to say no. People like me. That woman wasn't a victim. She was a predator. When it all finally cleared, when they told me I was no longer a suspect, I cried. Not because I was relieved, but because I realized I'd have to explain it all to my kids. And they'd grow up a little less trusting because of it. I still walk down Cicada Lane sometimes, not often, never at night. I glance over my shoulder more than I used to. I lock my doors the second I get inside. But I also know now what I didn't before. You don't have to be ready to be brave. You just have to choose your kids over your fear. Not all threats look like danger. Some smile, dress nice, and wait until your guard is down. Trust your instincts. And if someone threatens your children, forget who you think you are. You're a warrior. Use it.